August 17, 2015, I was diagnosed with leukemia. I found out when we were doing PT. I felt real tired, real out of the blue. It wasn't normal. The following day, I stepped out of my barracks room and I collapsed. I knew something was wrong. 3 hours later, I was in the emergency room. Scared, was confused, I didn't know what was going on. Nurse kept me through it. She stayed positive, and I tried to stay positive too. I didn't think I was gonna make it through. I knew my uncle had cancer. He had leukemia as well, and he passed away from it. I've been through chemotherapy. I've had full body radiations. I've been through a lot, but nonetheless, I've always stayed strong. One thing that kept me going was faith in God. But above all was getting that perfect match from my sister Michelle, 16 years old. At that point, I knew I was gonna make it. I knew I was gonna be a survivor, and I knew that everything was gonna go well after that. It was a hard road, biggest fight I've ever been in, and it's still going. It's not over yet. I hope I give others inspiration to try hard and to never give up.
In May of 1992, I was participating with the Patriot Battalion Task Force in Saudi Arabia in a follow-on operation to Desert Storm. When I got sick over about a 5-month period of time, eventually medevac to Wiesbaden Air Force Hospital and subsequently to Walter Reed Army Medical Center, where I was diagnosed on the 26th of May in 1992 with acute myelogenous leukemia. 89% of my bone marrow diseased, and the prognosis not very good. I know you can't tell that by looking at me now, but that led to 2 rounds of induction chemotherapy. I ended up with a chromosomal abnormality, trisomy 8. So now I needed to have a bone marrow transplant. And this is where the fascinating part of the journey begins for me. You see, almost 61 years ago to the day, I was the second born of a set of identical twins. So in my identical twin brother Jim, I had a perfect match for the bone marrow that was necessary to save my life. So I was medically retired in August of '92, and we were transported down to Wilford Hall Air Force Medical Center here in San Antonio, where on the 21st of September of 1992, I received the gift of my twin brother's bone marrow, and it saved my life. I'm here 23 years later due to that incredible gift. So, I'd just like to appeal to you, as somebody who's had 23 years of additional life. And one of the great joys for me being assigned here to the Higher Army Command for the Brooke Army Medical Center piece of SAMSI is I come and spend some time here on the bone marrow unit. This is my way of paying it forward. You see, the bone marrow unit we have here is the same unit that saved my life at Wilford Hall 23 years ago.
You've heard the stories, and there are many more like them that you'll never hear.
It's difficult to say because there's a lot, we've lost a lot of people. And now my job, searching for bone marrow, to go in and tell somebody that they have no match is devastating. And just watching the family's reaction and knowing that their only hope now is just response to regular treatment.
It's difficult to see patients that are young and that they're on the donor list and they end up, passing away waiting for a transplant, and they're not able to find a match for them.
And yes, it hasn't been, in the last 6 months, I've had to deliver that news that they had no match. And I can't tell you how emotional that is for me as well as the family at that time. The prognosis is much worse at that point, that they don't have that option to go to transplant.
Patients are in need of donors that are a genetic match. Unfortunately, 70% of people in need of a transplant are unable to find a donor within their families and are in need of an unrelated donor.
What we're finding is that because the database is so small for our minority folks, it's very difficult to find a match in order to procure bone marrow for them for transplant. That's why we encourage as many people as possible to get into the bone marrow registries.
Now I want to talk to you about another gift. I want to talk to you about the gift that exists in non-related matches, anonymous donors. I had the privilege of coaching my high school senior son and a bunch of kids from Hawaii, their local inline hockey team. Well, a couple of years ago, I'm in a job out of the Pentagon working in the office of the Chief of Chaplains, and one of our old hockey player friends called and said, "Hey, Coach John, guess what? I'm an anonymous match for a person with leukemia, and they're going to fly me into the National Capital Region." And so this young kid that I had the great privilege of coaching hockey was an anonymous match for an unrelated recipient. That person is still alive because of his gift of love and his thoughtfulness.
Each year, more than 12,000 patients are diagnosed with blood cancers like leukemia, lymphoma, sickle cell anemia, or other life-threatening diseases. These patients rely on the National Registry to find a match to save their lives.
The only way to change this is to join the registry. What better gift could you give than a gift of life?
Our patients become like our family members, and they stay with us for quite some time, so we develop these very close bonds with them, and it is a privilege to see these patients receive a bone marrow transplant and have a second chance at life.
So day zero, we treat for the patients like it's their new birth. So it's their birthday, we sing them happy birthday, we celebrate the give back of the cells.
All you have to do is do an oral swab, and that gets you put on the bone marrow registry list. If you ever become a match for somebody down the road, then the registry will contact you and they will do further testing at that time.
Now, some folks get kind of discouraged when they think about the possibility of being tissue typed or going on the bone marrow registry. My guess is because they think often of the fact that they'll have to be harvested the way my twin brother was harvested. Well, we don't get those stem cells that way anymore. They do it through an apheresis catheter in a laboratory setting, and it's a lot less significant in terms of trauma and effect upon the person that donates.
Everyone that has been a bone marrow donor, then their genetic information is in those databases, and so our search is put forward for a patient, and compared to, we hope, millions and millions of people in that database, to see if they have a match that they can be transplanted to.
A few minutes of your time could give a family a lifetime.
My message to you is just to register and be a donor for these patients. Help them out, help their families, and make a difference.
Again, we just represent for you different leukemia diagnoses, 23 years apart, but what we represent, what has recently happened in his life has potential to become the magnificent gift that my own transplant became for me. You know, I benefited in a great way. 23 years more of life. I retired in about 2 months with 30 years of service. Watched all 3 of my kids grow up, get married, and the grandfather to 7 grandkids. This is the life that's represented in young David's life too.
There's always hope. You can be the one that can save a life. Be a donor, donate some bone marrow, register online.
You can do it. Make a difference.